Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Trampled Underfoot podcast show, and Mark Lindsay was just he was raising some hell back in the green room, saying all sorts
Mhm,
of this and that.
mhm.
And so, Mark Lindsay on the west, Eloy on the east. Welcome to the show. What's going on, Mark?
Trampled Underfoot podcast, where we ask the burning question: wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?
Hell's yeah.
Okay, there you go. Quick one, real fast here before we get rolling. Growing up, what was your soda of choice? You and your friends bust down to the local convenience store. What are you grabbing?
Whenever the regular choice was always Pepsi, I had moments of Sunkiss and moments of Mountain Dew growing up.
Mhm,
But when I was out and about and I'd ever spot it,
mhm,
I'd go for root beer or even Dr. Pepper, as you were just singing before.
mhm.
Um, like at bowling alleys where they would offer you machines with different choices. If you remember back in the day,
Yeah.
there were certain locations that had weird little different choices.
Mhm.
I would probably experiment with the this, that, and the other. But
Yeah.
mainly Coca Cola was like the thing.
Um, I went through a phase. I remember when Mountain Dew came out. I was a little kid, and it was actually sold to adults as a mixer for whiskey
Well,
and to kids as an energy drink.
well, it sure had.
And they had the old hillbillies and the old truck and everything with the rifle hanging over his shoulder. Yahoo! Mountain Dew, which was an Appalachian slang for moonshine. But yeah, it was sold as a mixer for whiskey.
I used to drink those freaking things. And you got to remember that a can of soda, like if I
Mhm,
were to drink a can of soda now,
mhm,
I'd feel icky.
mhm.
Like seriously, like
Yeah.
if I were like, it doesn't appeal to me. Like if you asked me 10, 20 years ago, a
Mhm,
can of soda looked like, yeah, man, I could, man, that's refreshing. Now
mhm.
I look at it and I look at it, I'm thinking that's a freaking bomb
Syrup.
bomb of chemistry in a freaking thing. Like I look at it and I seriously think to myself, now, but when we were little
Mhm,
and the size we are now compared to the size we were then, and the amount in that can that we drink of sugar
mhm,
and caffeine or whatever, I mean, honestly, that should
mhm.
be against. I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying figuratively. That should be against the law.
I was a big time root beer and orange soda freak, and it didn't matter what brand of orange soda. But if I couldn't get orange soda, I wanted root beer. And
I loved root beer.
then my dad introduced me to knee high cream soda. And that was my beverage of choice after that. But knee high wasn't sold in very many stores. In fact, in the 80s, when I went into the Army, it had reduced down to where there was only one grocery store here in the valley that sold it. And what I always thought was fun about it was knee high cream soda and it was bright blue. It looked like you were drinking Windex. I kid you not. And it was just part of that dopey, being different kind of thing. And after you got finished drinking, your mouth was blue after you finished drinking a bottle of it.
I mean, cream soda was all right. It wasn't popular,
Mhm,
but again, if there was an option
mhm.
and it was weird, we'd try it out.
Yep.
And I can't. I there's some stories I'd like to share, but I absolutely don't think it would be appropriate to share.
Okay. Well, then we'll get off of that real quick.
No, but it's so damn tempting. But it's just like it's not because it'll direct. But I'll just say that there's all sorts of brands, and there were jokes that would lean towards attaching
Yeah.
brands to people and such and this and that.
Yeah.
I remember that, but never knowing as a kid the actual what's the darn reason for the context of such and this is that.
Yeah.
Um, and but I remember wanting to try it. It just looked like freaking awesome different varieties, and I was like, oh heck yeah.
Oh yeah. Did
Uh,
you ever did you ever try a suicide?
no,
That was when when They first introduced in the fast food shops, or maybe it was a 7-Eleven, I don't remember, where you could fill your own soda. And you just go down the line and take a little bit of a squirt of each thing that they offered. So you'd have a little bit of Coke and a little bit of Dr. Pepper and a
Oh,
little
okay,
bit of
yeah,
orange,
yeah.
a little bit of or strawberry soda or root beer and all this other. It all tasted the same and it was just nasty.
But wait a second. This idea of self-serve
Hmm.
that came in the '80s, late '80s, in my opinion, as far as I understand it. Because prior to that, we did. Oh, you're talking about
I
Seven
think it was
Eleven.
in the 7-Elevens in like the 70s, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about 7-Elevens.
Hmm.
I can't remember anymore, but I do remember one of the biggest breakthroughs that was actually a paradigm shift was that
Hmm.
all of a sudden Burger King, in order to, I
Hmm.
guess, meet um beat the competition,
Hmm.
put the freaking drinks all you can drink out, and that did had to have drove a lot of people. I sure
Well,
was there.
I know from my casino and bar experience that the soda in the it's in a box and then they it's mixed with carbonated water and everything else out of the gun,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with the beverage machines. um that stuff is incredibly cheap. I mean, so much so, I mean, that's why they could still sell it at the time. Okay, I'm talking about 2012 when I got out of that industry. They could still sell it for 60 cents a cup and still make money on it.
Yeah.
um, so if you decide that you're going to have half Coke and half lemonade, you can do it. And that's where a lot of these combinations came from. That's where the iced tea lemonade thing came from. They just started noticing that those were the things that they were running out, and started running out faster, and just started watching how people were doing it. And they'd go half iced tea and half lemonade.
I I I just on that note prior, I don't look at sodas
Mhm.
as I used to.
Well, neither do I.
In terms of desire,
Mhm.
notice I use the word desire, but you get the point.
Yeah,
It's like I look at them and I'm like, I'm okay.
yeah.
Nah, a nice tall for me, a nice tall glass of water with my meal. Let us limit the sugar. I like sugar, but like it's been a long time coming now, but for a while,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's way too much sugar. Um, I don't
For
want
me,
it.
it's just a carrier for the caffeine anymore. And full disclosure, I drink diet soda because when I was married the first time, that's all my ex-wife ever bought was diet sodas, and I got used to drinking it. And if I take a drink out of a regular Coke or Pepsi, it just tastes like a mouthful of sugar, a mouthful of syrup. It's just sickeningly sweet. I
But
can't
that's what
handle
I'm
it.
saying, Mark. When you were little, and you freaking chug
Oh
down
yeah, I
those.
wanted. Yeah, I'd eat sugar cubes as a snack when I was little.
What I'm saying is that um that wasn't right in a sense because it's
Oh.
like you know what? Because it's overkill, dude.
Hmm.
Like it's extreme overkill.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. But it was different when you were coming up. Um, I was born far enough away from World War II that we didn't have any food rationing. We didn't have any of the stamps, or no, you can only have a pound of this per month or whatever. We didn't have any of that, but my parents remembered it. And at the time, it was a different time. It was a different age. Parents would proudly stand in the street and dump sugar down your throat because they had been denied it. So it was a treat for us and something that really just didn't have a limit, you know? So, of course, we got yelled at, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, and all this other good stuff. But it was just a different time. And we ran those calories off.
When you did your quick
Hmm.
chocolate or strawberry, I would buy. My mom would buy both.
Yeah.
Um, and they came in those rectangle
Hmm.
metal little tins
With a little tin lid. Yeah.
with the little lid that you'd pop open, and that was always fun to pop back in. I don't
Hmm.
know why as a kid I liked that. Um, but would they prepare or you prepare yourself the drink? I'd spoon a couple in with the milk, but then I'd add sugar on top of that.
Oh, and I didn't do that.
I did. And you know what I would love to do when the drink was getting to the bottom
Hmm.
and like you had less liquid left, which was becoming syrupy,
Hmm.
you'd have these granules at the bottom mixed in just with slight, and I go like that, and I'd let it run down the cup and
Hmm.
start to, and as it touched my,
Oh, okay, yeah.
it was
Sugar
almost,
trail.
yeah, dude, it was almost an orgasmic, spectacular, and I just go like that, and the sugar would just slide down it, and dude,
Mhm.
I could not imagine. I mean, I kind of do that with coffee, but it's all, um, the coffee is all, it blends in with the coffee. It's no longer
Mhm.
the same thing, but I do
Sure.
get the last little drops of coffee,
Uh,
and they're sweeter.
I used to get that with Cheerios and cornflakes because you always had sugar to your Cheerios and cornflakes.
Yeah,
And there was always some at the bottom of the milk that didn't dissolve, and you'd tip that up, drink the milk and everything, and then oh, here it comes,
the good stuff.
the good stuff. Yeah, that was. But I didn't add sugar to like Nestle's Quick or anything like that. And I almost always got chocolate, but every once in a while I would ask for strawberry.
Did you
And
like?
then about halfway through the can of strawberry, it'd be like, I'm tired of this. I wish I'd have got chocolate, you know. But mom wouldn't buy more until that can was empty.
Did you like? It was okay,
Mhm.
but did you like the peanuts in the Cracker Jacks? Because although
Yeah.
it was okay, but it wasn't like the really fancy peanuts.
Hmm.
It was okay.
Hmm.
I mostly bought Cracker Jacks not because I loved Cracker Jacks. I bought
Hmm.
it for the prizes, honestly.
I just like the Cracker Jacks. The prizes I knew were going to be like a whistle or later on a tattoo or something stupid like that, but or a bird call. But I've always liked popcorn, and I like the popcorn, the peanuts, and the caramel. As a matter of fact, my grandmother on my father's side, she used to make it. She'd make her own, and that was when you could because you could smell it starting to cook in the kitchen. And when she made that, and you heard the popcorn popping, you're like, okay, man. And she'd make her own, and always had a bag full of that stuff
My
whenever
grandmother
I
would
spent
come
summers up
home,
here.
or not come home. She'd come visit us prior to her moving. My grandparents lived in the Little Havana area, and this was in the 70s. Actually,
Mhm.
this was 70s. I have great memory. I was could have been 5, 6 years old, or 4, 5, 6 years old, but they would come visit on the weekends.
Mhm.
We had the TV in the living room. My grandfather would turn on the TV because at that time, and it lasted throughout most of the 80s too, after the fact, where at noontime and after TV, they would show Tarzan, followed by Abbott and Costello movies, and then maybe some Western or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was your Sunday or Saturday. Well, he'd turn out, and my grandmother, they'd get there, and then they'd bring the groceries of whatever they brought for that weekend.
Mhm.
And grandmother would say, "Do you want a shake? We're gonna make a mango shake or a this shake or that shake." And it was like her special treat, and she'd make the shakes at
Mhm.
home, and it was always with Caribbean fruit variations and such, and very special stuff, very special stuff. Remembering that,
I
um,
I blame it on my aunt. She would occasionally do things like that. And she's the one that got me hooked on peanut butter milkshakes.
oh, those are great.
It
Oh,
was fantastic. I love peanut butter
oh, dude,
milkshakes.
that's a great shake.
Um, Dad showed me how to make snow ice cream, and I got the brilliant idea to try to make a milkshake out of it, and it didn't quite work. Um, but the other thing that she did, I was 6 or 7, something like that. You've heard of a taffy pole, right? Your
Um,
mom and I met at a taffy pole. You've never really heard that? Eh, Homemade candy, basically. You make a taffy. You're boiling sugar and water and different flavors and colors together to get whatever flavor taffy you want. You lay it out on wax paper and you let it cool down to where you can handle it. You butter up your hands and to keep it from sticking because it's gooey, sticky stuff. So I'm sitting at on a chair on one side of their dining room table. My Aunt Sue is sitting on the other side of the table. We've got a big old thing of wax paper laying down between us. And you've got this big blob of candy, and you both grab a hold of it and you pull away from one another. Then go raise your hands up and go back in, touch it together, kind of stick it back together, grab the bottom and you pull it again and wad it up and pull it again. And you're adding air into it to soften up this candy. Now it's all done by machines. I'm sure you've seen those machines in the candy store window that's got like two forks that do this.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
That's what we were doing by hand. And you did that for like 20 minutes until it turned this kind of a silky satin color. It shined like satin fabric or something like that. Then she'd lay it down and she'd roll it out and she'd cut it up into pieces. Man, that was good stuff.
A week ago or so, I don't know how I ran into it, but I remembered you were probably in the army back then, or maybe not. I don't know. Where were you in 82, 83?
I was in the Army at Fort Ord, California. First part of 82, I was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Then after that, I was at Fort Ord, California in the Army.
Well, I, younger than you, were in Little Havana, staying there for a short. No, actually, no. I was in still this area, but my mom had moved out because my parents had separated for that year.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived nearby, a couple of miles away, 2 miles away, 3 miles away, where my grandparents were with my grandparents' aunt and mother. Um, and during that time, they would go out on dates. My parents would, so I would be taken to my aunt's house that lived in Little Havana.
Yeah.
My aunt Berta, and I'd stay there while they went on a date. Well, okay, um, that's where I was. Do you recall during that year? For some reason, it was meaningful to me, but I remember as a kid watching that King Kong in 3D was going to be airing, and that you could acquire glasses at your local 7-Elevens or Kentucky Fried Chicken outlets.
I don't remember that. It sounds familiar. King Kong in 3D. Are you talking about in the theaters or on television?
TV broadcast for the first time
I
aired on American TV, a national spectacle that will be happening on this evening.
I don't remember it on TV, but I do remember King Kong in 3D in the theaters because I remember the movie posters. I never saw it, but
So there was a promotional thing,
mhm,
and there were glasses,
yeah,
like the regular blue and red ones.
yeah, cardboard glasses with one blue lens, one red lens. Yeah,
Well, at the time, it's not like I was a avid
hmm
analysis,
yeah,
of
movie critic. Yeah,
movie critic and knowing what the hell was what. I saw an ape featured, and so I connected it as King Kong in 3D. But that evening, I got there with the glasses that my
Mhm.
mom had bought at who knows where, maybe at a 7-Eleven or
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. And my aunt turned on the TV because I insisted that this show and this show and this
Hmm.
show. And then it came on, and it turns out to be a human sized gorilla type creature
Hmm.
at a circus
Oh,
and just moving around. And I'm like, what? I was so disappointed. It turned out to be a 1950 something movie that was filmed in 3D at the time. And it was called, I'll tell you what it's called because um, I made a post about it. It was called, oh well, hell. It was called, well, son of a gun. King, wait. So in '82, mom dropped me off grandmother's house, granddaughter's house. Weekend 3D glasses, a lot. Remember exciting to the point. I discovered Gorillas at Large from
Oh,
1954.
no, I never heard of that.
Gorilla at Large from 1954. And I did some research after the fact because I remembered a moment in American history
Hmm.
from my preview in 1982 and wanted to find the connection to see if I could connect it all and was able to. So it was Gorillas at Large. It aired in '82, but it aired in different dates on different dates across America. And what TV stations did was they had promotional skits prior based on advertising their different locales and such and this and that. And it
Right.
was a national event um, that we were going to have 3D on TV.
Okay.
And so nothing. I remember in my corner of America participating, but as I was a little kid, was quite disappointed because I didn't understand all the facts involved. I wanted to see King Kong.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
I
Well,
got monkey
I
in
was
a
just
barrel.
looking it up, and there was a King Kong movie that was released in '76.
Yeah, but this was not that.
But yeah, oh, okay. It's on a site called Bad Movie Night. The 3D gimmickry of the King Kong ripoff Ape, APE. It was done in when was it done? 1970. Come on, 1976. Um, but it's really they call that a very bad ripoff. Okay, well, anyway, um, I probably got the year wrong because now they're not saying. They said
You
it
have
was a ripoff of the 1976 King Kong.
yeah. This wasn't that.
Hmm.
You should type in Gorilla at Large 3D glasses 3D
Okay,
event
I'll check it out.
1982, and then it'll bring up some information to uh, sort of delve slightly into that what that was. But it wasn't King Kong.
Hmm.
It was in 3D, but I
Oh,
can't remember whether the
oh,
3D worked or not.
okay. You're gonna laugh. I have seen this movie, Gorilla at Large. It was made in 1954,
Right.
years ago. I mean, I think my ex-wife and I were dating. So we're looking at 1977, 78. One of the local radio stations here had they would get together with some of the drive-ins or local theaters and have free movie night. And one year during the week of Halloween, they got with the Holly Theater here, indoor theater, and there was a triple feature of 3D 50s movies. Gorilla at Large. The other one was Creature from the Black Lagoon, and It Came from Outer Space. And we're all sitting there in our red and green or red and blue glasses watching these flicks. They were made for 3D, and it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I always enjoyed that.
But Gorilla at Large was one of them. So yes, I did see the movie, but I never saw it on TV.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like it was brand new to me because I had no. That was the first time I'd engaged in the 3D concept was quite
Hmm.
trippy for me, as a kid to think of that. But it was
Yeah,
something that came from back in the 50s and so on.
50s. Yeah,
Um,
it was pretty cool. It was
now
pretty cool. I
I
enjoyed it.
I will say that as far as 3D movies go, and I can think of a few of them that came out in the '80s that I went to see.
Hmm.
Jaws as
Hmm.
one of them. It was a terrible movie, but whatever. Terrible. There's actually videos on explaining how terrible it was, which is quite entertaining in itself,
Hmm.
just to watch on YouTube. Like how terrible this movie, and then they go through the all the reasons why, and you can't help but agree with them. But sometime in the mid 2000s,
Hmm.
or maybe 2012, or I forget when,
Hmm.
Peter Jackson from New Zealand, director of the Lord of the Rings movies, came out with the Hobbit series,
Uh-huh.
and he did so in I don't know how many frames per second plus 3D. So it was the
Okay.
high rate frame rate made
Hmm.
it so that when you're looking at the action,
Hmm.
it looks lifelike.
Yeah.
And dude, it really I went to see it, dude. It was so insane to
Yeah.
watch the movie like that. It's like it just filled your, and plus we're talking about today's technology with the huge screens with vivid colors and sound,
Hmm.
plus the exaggerated like 3D perfection. It was so mind blowing, dude. It's not even funny.
Okay, I think Jim says the movie was so bad it raked in at the box office, and then there were sequels. No, this was Jaws 3. Okay, this was one of the sequels. There were two versions of it. There was either Jaws 3 or Jaws 3D. They had a 2D and a 3D version.
Yeah.
And Jaws 3 has a 3.7 out of 10 score on IMDb. It has an 11% like it rate on Rotten Tomatoes and 27% on Metacritic. It's universally ranked as one of the worst movies of the year, which was 1983.
Yeah, no, the original Jim,
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's a good movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
entertaining and it's well, but the 3D one was just horrible, dude. It really was. I mean, you should look it up. I don't know the title, but somebody does a great step-by-step critique that's actually more entertaining than the actual movie.
Yeah, some of those are pretty good.
Yeah.
There is a I don't know if it's still on YouTube. This has been years ago, and I haven't looked for it. They called it Star Wars Public Cut or Public Director's Cut. I really don't remember what it was called, but basically, what they did was they split up the script, the whole Star Wars, A New Hope, the very first Star Wars. They split it up into like 30-second chunks. And they just gave it out to people and let guys like you and me, we'd film our 30-second segment and send it in. So, we might be walking around on Tatooine. We might be meeting the Jawas to buy 3PO and R2, or we might be going to blow up the Depth Star. But it was a very cool project, even if you didn't like the movie, because nobody, nobody was I mean, different actors for everything, absolutely everything. And some guys tried to really do very good sets. And other people just like you're sitting in a cardboard box with a plastic steering wheel that you got off of a kiddie car, flying a X-wing or something like that. It was hilarious, very creative, and actually very well done.
Yeah, I've seen that. I just want to because I couldn't help it.
No.
So Jim writes, I am so sick. A woman who has given birth could almost relate to it. Well, he prior to that says that he says, I'm not quite with it tonight. Got the flu fever, going from shivers to sweating right now. And then death sounds like an agreeable alternative. Um, and then Harneal Media comes in and says, Me too, Kim. Hope you feel better. So, Harneal. But then Harneal realized, even in Harneal's sickness, that he said Kim instead of Jim. So he corrected me. He said Jim. And I came in and said, "You mean Kim Jim Il?"
Had to do that, didn't you?
I had to do because I love it. It just, but
Or,
anyways, whatever.
or Kim Il Jim, Kim Jim Il. Yeah,
Well,
why not?
I followed, yeah, because I tried to, whatever. It's almost like like Steve laid the groundwork for me to slide that one in. It was just,
And you couldn't resist it.
at least Jim enjoyed it. Notice Harneal is so stoic. Even when he says nothing, there's stoicness coming through the screen.
Exactly. Back on the homemade candy thing, Linda says her mom used to make popcorn balls when she was a kid. I liked the caramel, but not crazy about the popcorn. I liked it all because I was eating something sweet, a little bit salty, and just good. I liked it all. I liked all that stuff. Caramel popcorn balls, caramel apples, all of it. I ate hell out of it.
I used to love the puffy Cheetos.
Yep, I still do. I bought some. Well, it's been over a year now. I was just in the store and I said, "Man, I haven't had those cheese puffs in a long time." So I bought a bag, brought them home, and they lasted maybe 20 minutes. I just sat there eating them, watching a YouTube video. And next thing I know, I'm at the bottom of the bag. I'm like, son of a gun. I sat there and ate that entire damn bag.
On a similar
And
note, on a similar note,
mhm,
I walked by the aisle where the potato chips are at, and I don't know why I was feeling that bold, but
mhm.
I turned that cart into that aisle because I haven't done that for quite, dude. I'm talking about a long time.
Yeah,
Like
we don't buy chips very often.
I don't buy a lot of stuff that I would usually buy years
Mhm.
ago simply because I refuse to pay prices. So I'm willing to, um, um, go without when I feel offended by a freaking. I'm offended by prices. Um, and so I turned the cart because I said, I'm a little bit bold, and I remember those delicious Schneider's pretzels, and
I
I
haven't
did
bought
turn
pretzels
that.
in years.
Well, I did turn and I said, you know what, Eloy, I'm gonna grab one, but it's only one.
Hmm.
And I did. I grabbed
The
it,
gateway drug.
and then I came home, ate it with my meal as a little side crunchy crunch. Finished that bag. Then I went back, got another one. I'm on my third bag now, dude.
Okay, just to let you know, I'm going to try to catch it as it comes, but I'm starting a sneezing fit. I hardly ever sneeze just once. So I'm going to try to be good with the mute button. We'll see how that works. Ugh.
Um,
Yeah, I don't do that often. We don't buy chips very often because it's a case of caught it. It's a case of, to me anyway, there are certain foods that
wait,
chips
wait, wait,
go
wait,
with.
wait, wait a second.
What?
You sneezed so hard, you muted it, but you sneezed so hard that now your volume went down.
Did I really?
Say it again.
Did I really?
Okay, now you're back. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think your sneeze, even though you put it on,
The gain on my mic.
it overloaded. It said, "Whoa."
Yeah, that'll get me to sneeze again. Just okay.
Technology wasn't built for such volume.
Yeah. Well, if Linda's frying up or I'm grilling burgers or hot dogs, we'll get some chips to go with it. But other than that, just for leaving it for snacking around, I just don't buy chips. And a bag of potato chips will sit in here for a week. I like the plain, and Linda likes the sour cream and onion. And so she doesn't get into the plain. I don't get into the sour cream and onion. And I mean, it'll be a week. Take me a week to eat a bag of chips.
Just on a side note,
Mhm.
I don't do this. I let it rip in terms of when I sneeze. I don't reduce volume. I go, ha, cha, boom. There are people that pull the reins back on that horse in order to sort of meet the surrounding environment. Not me. If I'm gonna, I just frickin' sneeze, and I've scared people in the process because it's so out. Has that ever happened to you?
uh, well, when I sneeze, everybody knows it. We were in we were in the grocery section of Walmart one day, and I started one of these, and it was a five sneeze rumble. I sneezed once, nothing. Then we got about 10 more feet down the aisle. I sneezed again. 2 aisles over, I hear, bless you.
That's funny.
Thank you. I got a little bit further down the aisle, sneezed again. Bless you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And like I said, about 5 times in a row. On the last one, the woman who was with the dude saying, bless you, went, blow your nose. And I'm like, with what? And they both start laughing. So, and then about 3 minutes later, we both came around from opposite ends of the same aisle. And I said, thank you. And he said, bless you.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
control those
His
things.
sneezes are epic. Trust me on this. I've woken Linda up. I try to go to the other end of the house if she's still asleep and I'm sneezing. But I'll be sitting in here typing on Facebook in a chat or something like that, or posting something, and I'll sneeze, and then suddenly Linda will message me, bless you. Yeah. From the other end of the house through a closed door.
See, that's using technology to get a direct environmental thing that's just next door, the other room away, using technology to bypass the actual. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what technology was meant for.
well, the reason I mute is because you have guys like me and you have guys like Steve. We're sitting here with headphones on, and I don't want to blow his headphones off of his head. Send him screaming into the other room with his chair on fire. So I try to be courteous of the next guy. But yeah, okay. Well, we did 10 minutes on me sneezing. So,
Now off the you in the store thing. In my last visit to Wally World, the greatest place on earth next to, I don't know, Home Depot, and Disney World, um, I or Guitar Center. I was at Wally World, and I've not been too keen on how poorly the process of purchasing things is once you're in a line,
mhm,
and the slow register people. So
mhm,
I'm already, I can call it, trained to
mhm,
expect the lines, even if they're short or long, it doesn't matter. People inch their way because the ladies blip. Well, anyways, this time I saw a long line,
mhm.
like past the center aisle into, because it's like the season, and into like cosmetics and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're stuck in the aisle waiting
Mhm,
to cross the threshold, and then you're in the line.
mhm,
For some reason the line was just going, and people had a lot of items. It was just going and going and going. I get there into the first part of the actual line.
mhm.
I realized that the lady's doing something different that the other ones are not. She was taking items as they arrived on the belt,
Mhm,
scanning them, putting them in the bag, proceeded by the next one in succession,
mhm.
without this dumbfounded look each time they have an item in their hands.
Yeah.
She was just simply
Doing her job.
doing her job. And guess what? It worked. Even though the line was long, it was so quick. And it made me think. And I told her, I said, ma'am, I don't want to, but I have to say. And she stopped like that and said, but I have to say that this line, and you know how I have to get to the point, but I'm
Mhm.
giving her all the things. So she's like waiting for me to do something, say
Waiting for
something,
the other shoe to drop. Yeah.
and said, but I have to give you credit. And then you could see in her face, like she was relieved. I was like, I have to give you credit because you're literally, this is flowing like I've never seen this in my life, and there's a long line. And she
Mhm.
says, oh, you're not the first to tell me. And I was like,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, it says a lot about the other cashiers,
Yeah.
and it says a lot about her. In my mind, I was thinking she should be promoted to prime executive of the
No,
CEO of
no,
the.
no, 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 no. You need her where she is. That's the problem with doing such a good job is you're never going to move up. If say you're the manager of that store and somebody walks up to you and said, that cashier right there, she is dynamite. Best damn cashier. She needs a promotion. She will never be on another register and you're going to wait in the slow ass lines. No, she needs to be right where she is. I mean, bad luck for her. But
Well, it solves your problem. But I'm saying is that if you're looking at, if it's problematic
mm,
for a great deal of the cashiers
mhm.
to promptly execute the purchasing process and have you out the
Well,
door, and yet this one lady, either she's an exceptional specimen, or
the rest of them are half stepping. Yeah.
right. And now chances are, I don't know her personally, but she was just doing the job.
Hmm.
And so it really makes you think that, yeah, that's how come a lot of these things don't work properly, because people just simply are not doing what they should.
It's real easy to fall into the mindset to where I'm here for 8 hours. I don't care. They don't pay me to get people out of here fast, so I'm going to do it at my own pace. It's real easy to fall into that kind of mindset. I've done it myself. I get the same pay whether 400 customers go through my line today or 200 customers go through my line today. So why am I going to break a sweat? And then you have other people that are just, I mean, the line is just jamming through, you know. It's real easy to get into that line set or mindset rather. But while we're on that subject, and it's funny you mentioned that because I threw out a couple of compliments when Linda and I hit Wally World the other day. We did the typical dreaded mistake and had to go to the grocery store the day before Thanksgiving. And I said, well, let's get the hell there and back before the crowds get there because everybody forgets eggs,
Mark,
everybody forgets milk, everybody forgets butter.
you do know, just as an, let me just interject, you know that you are the problem in this situation, because there's those, all those other people
Mhm.
are thinking probably similar to you, saying, you know what, yeah, I know, but we've got to go ahead and do this, and we'll
And
just sneak in and sneak out and get it done. So
and
you're
dude, it worked. We got in there at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sometime between 2 and 2:30, somewhere in there, before everybody got off work for the weekend. They had everything because usually you go in the day before Thanksgiving, you ain't gonna find a stick of butter, you ain't gonna find a half gallon of milk, and you ain't gonna find any eggs. Everything was fully stocked. Everything. We walked in, and I'm like, well, let's get the stuff that we know is going to be gone first, and then we can kind of coast through the rest of the store. So I mean, we were jamming stuff into that cart like Tetris, man. Butter, boom, head over to milk. Oh, what? Yeah, you want this milk? Okay, boom. Okay, we want that. But holy hell, they had everything. Everything was fully stocked. And then we could take our time picking out the rest of the stuff. Usually chocolate chips are gone or a graham cracker pie crust. They're empty. Oh no, we haven't had that or powdered sugar for a month now. They had everything. And I think I scared that kid to death because there was a guy stocking shelves up towards the front of the store. And you could see he was moving. And I walked up and I says, man, I got to hand it to you guys. You guys have done a hell of a job. I said, I really thought we were going to get in here and find an empty store. The place isn't jam packed crowded and everything was on the shelves. You guys really did one hell of a job. And he said, well, we knew you were coming. And I'm like, okay, score yourself 5 bonus style points. But man, you guys really kicked somebody. Says, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go away before you get used to somebody saying something nice for a change.
on the flip side of that, when I went to the Publix, um, I went to pee in the bathroom as opposed to on
Yeah,
the hall,
I'm a,
in the
in
hall.
the hallway. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a moment of thinking about it and decided on that. But I finished, washed my hands, and then proceeded towards the towel thing, paper towel thing. and there was none. And so I said, "Oh well," and I walked out, wringing my hands and
Hmm.
getting all that. And as I'm walking, I see the manager, and I said, "Oh, excuse me, I don't mean to bother, but just letting you know that the men's bathroom, there's no paper towels." He says, "Oh, I'll take care of that right away." And I said, "No, no problem. I can air dry." And I'm wringing my head. Um, but it seems like that's a common feature of certain places where the men's bathroom isn't stocked with the proper. Do you see that ever?
It happens. It's not a regular thing, um, but it does happen, and they do want you to let them know. Because there are, and it varies state to state, county to county, but there are health laws, and they have to provide you with a way to dry your hands rather than just your shirt.
Now,
So they want to know that.
if that was a public,
Some of them will even put up signs. If the bathroom is lacking anything, please let us know.
yeah, um, it if that was a public bathroom in
Mhm.
ancient Rome, instead of asking for the, I
Yeah,
would have
you'd have
asked
a
for the.
sponge on a stick. Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, excuse me, there's a missing sponge on the stick, but I can air dry, so I'll just."
Hmm. Squeak for the first 30 feet as you walk away. But, Linda says when she was working in the National Guard Armory in Carson City, Nevada, she would sneeze so loud. Her friend around the corner, 4 doors down, would call her to say "gazoon tight." Yeah, she's no slouch either. We both let it out, man. We don't hide our sneezes. You know,
I
you ever
mean,
seen those people that can, when they sneeze, they just kind of bounce a little bit and maybe they squeak?
mhm.
It's like, what was that? Oh, I sneezed. That was a sneeze.
Let it out, man. Let it out.
Yeah, Jim Dockrell says better than the seismology department freaking out. No, I want them dudes to jump and go, "Oh my God, is it the big one?" No, when I sneeze, I figure your body sneezes for a reason. It's trying to eliminate something in your sinuses or your nasal passages or something. It's trying to eliminate something. So go
Yeah.
for it. Blow the walls off, man. Just have a tissue handy. So,
So I guess I'll touch on the subject that I wanted to mention.
oh, okay.
So I'm part of a group that's Iberian genealogy and genetics.
Okay.
In the group, there's thousands of people in there
Hmm.
um, that come from all parts of the Spanish-speaking world, from Spain. Even though Portugal isn't Spanish-speaking, but they're part of the Iberian Peninsula, so the genetics are shared to a degree. You'll find them. You'll find people from Argentina, from Mexico,
Hmm.
um, a few people with Cuban ancestry. But my area of that world is a much smaller area. It's very tiny in
Hmm.
percentage wise, population wise, and everything else wise. It's just smaller. There's smaller ones probably, but whatever. Mexico's
Hmm.
huge. Argentina's huge. I don't know what their numbers are, but I know that Mexico's numbers are in the 100 million plus or whatever. Um, Spain is like maybe 70 or 40 mil. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's small. And for Cuban ancestry, you're looking at 11 million or 15 million probably on the island, something like that, or whatever.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of people from different places, and the history is broad. The history goes, for 500, 600 years, and people have different ways or different interests and different assumptions
Hmm.
about how stuff works in their respective little corners of the Spanish world and the origins and such and this and that. There's one lady that's all in head first that we're basically Jewish,
Okay.
and I just Jewish. Now I'm not reciting her position perfectly, but she insists. So she's partly coming from Cantabria, 2 or 3 generations back,
Hmm.
and her and I have shared surnames in our trees.
Hmm.
But she's a Jew file, like she's
Hmm.
totally down with the plan. Like she
Hmm.
likes it. She likes it. That's like she likes
Hmm.
it.
Okay.
But I get the impression that it's almost like a nail looking for a hammer.
She's projecting that onto other people.
She's projecting that onto other people. So anything. So like for instance, I have a name on my paternal side, which is salmon or salmon,
Hmm.
escajero salmon,
Hmm.
like my great grandfather. Um, her suggestion is that the origins of that are absolutely Jewish via England and originally Sephardic or whatever the heck. And if that's not enough, she goes and grabs other names from our world and does the same thing because the names can fit. It's almost like correlation causation.
Hmm.
The so you can have a salmon name in England which exists
Hmm.
and it not necessarily be tied to the salmon name in Spain
Right.
or France.
Hmm.
Because salmon not only is I don't know if there's salmon in uh, England, but
The
I know there's
fish?
yeah,
Yes, there are.
okay, and I know there are in Spain. So it's not outrageous
Hmm.
lacking documentation to link
Hmm.
us to Jews
Hmm.
that Christian families would name after the fish close to the river that they were, or call themselves river for that matter,
Hmm.
because there is in Spanish the
Rivera.
the surname River, Rivero,
Hmm.
and a whole host of stuff. Just like
Hmm.
mine is thorny bush on the side of who knows where in the wilderness. It's likely, I don't know, maybe
Hmm.
not, that my ancestor at some point was
Hmm.
a gentleman that lived near a very brush filled, thorny bushed area.
Right.
And bam, go visit Eloy by the bushes, by the thorn bush,
Hmm.
and whatever. And so stuff like that. So, but she's insistent on this thing and she confronts me.
Hmm.
And I don't mind it necessarily, but um, I'm open minded enough. I have my bias, but I'm open minded enough to tell her, look, anything's possible, but shy of actual documentation,
Hmm.
I neither agree nor disagree. I'm just
Hmm.
like, you know, the context I explained to her of our names that we share in common is a world where there were little villages along mountainsides with churches
Yeah.
that go into the forgettable the
Forgotten past.
non-documented
Yeah.
past,
Hmm.
the non-doc in other words, Christianity was there in the form of the people constructing buildings that are ancient. So how do you go from that to Jew? Okay, you can accept that there's a possibility that Jews came into the population and mixed. We know that historically that's true,
Hmm.
but unless you have a document, you can't
Right.
overemphasize the Jew part. And she's not necessarily having it at all.
Well, see and that position doesn't account for name changes. Now, I don't know how common name changes were in the Iberian Peninsula, but
It
I know they did happen quite often in England back at that time. I mean, people were taking. I'm almost certain. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that surnames in continental Europe, not specifically Spain, but including Spain, I think that was a thing before they were really super, super commonplace in England or in, let's just say, the British Isles. They were some, but not everybody had the surname. That's why they were really given a surname like Baker because he was a baker, or Johnson because he's John's son. It I think that went around in mainland Europe before it got to the British Isles. I could be mistaken there, but I don't
It
think
came.
so.
At some point, something or other happened where you had to differentiate
Hmm.
two Johns
Hmm.
that were living in the same area.
Right.
I'm giving an example, just like what you said. One John lived by the fountain area, and the other one lived um, up on the hill.
Yeah.
So maybe one was John Hill or John of the Hill, and the
Yes.
other one was John Fountain or something to that effect. And so you could separate because somebody would come along and say, "Look, we got to collect this from wait, where does John live? The one with the big nose? Oh, you're talking about John up by the hill
Yeah.
or Underhill
Hmm.
or all." So this is what's we don't know the detailed exact reasons
Hmm.
unless we look at specific cases and can figure it out. But shy of knowing the details of a specific situation,
Right.
you cannot
Right.
input a
You
meaning
yeah,
that
you can't make that jump.
you can't make the jump. So um and that's all I'm saying with this Jewish thing. Now, on a historical note or on a genetic note,
Hmm.
you could take the Iberian Peninsula and you can fit it on a gradient with the Mediterranean world.
Hmm.
But here's the and what does that mean? Why am I saying that? Because Jews existed in the Mediterranean world,
Oh yeah.
and so genetics is passed around.
Hmm.
But here's the problem: Spain or the Iberian Peninsula also exists on the western, not only the southern Europe, but it's
Hmm.
also Western Europe.
Hmm.
See, Spain is so it also connects with people above. So people
Hmm.
above contribute. So the problem is that you have a population in Spain of people that are the result of all its surroundings to one degree or the other,
Hmm.
depending on a case basis, to the point where you don't you can't make those leaps of assumptions and say, okay, that's a Jew or a Muslim for that
Hmm.
matter. You can't do that unless you take a case by case basis. But broadly speaking, and so I told her, look,
Hmm.
if you're asking me broadly, I could agree that if you take it in a general overview, that the people that we come from are a selection of all these groups, and that would include Jews in there to whatever degree that would be the case. But I can't sit here and say, and by the way, my surname is of origin of this, and that, unless I have proof otherwise. Because you're talking about, you know, um, names that can go across borders
Yeah.
and religions.
Yeah. And that's the main thing. The names can go wherever. And if you adopt the name, I mean, your family adopted the name Escajedo someplace way, 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 way back. But did they adopt it or was it given to them?
I don't
You
know.
know, and yeah, there's no way you could know. And I mean, people get together all over the place, everywhere, for whatever reason, for various reasons. So, yeah, I mean, everybody knows this that DNA has been blending around for,
Always,
millennia. Yeah.
always. There
So,
is no space to fit in, no mixing.
yeah.
There is
I
none.
mean,
Genetically
yeah,
speaking,
exactly. I mean,
none.
everybody's a mutt, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
So,
over and over again. But the point is that when you
yeah, you
so
can't make a statement of fact like that unless you've got the facts to back it up.
and that's
Like,
what I asked her, but she's not having it.
well,
And
then,
she'll even go in the past. She'll go to the extreme of saying that I'm anti this or anti that, or less preferable to this or that. And it's I could give a crap personally
mhm.
what the origin is, as long as it's as accurate
Yeah.
as possible, because that way, whatever is the truth of the matter, more or less as close as you can get it, okay, fine, that's what it is. But don't go and speculate and call speculation
Well,
something more than it is.
I don't understand her antagonistic attitude. I mean, you don't care one way or another. It seems to me that she's the only one that cares.
Let me give you
What?
the
Why?
context.
Why be so antagonistic about it?
Let me give you the context of what happened,
Hmm.
of why she came at me recently. And I'm not angry.
Hmm.
Uh, I find it,
Well, that's what I'm getting at. That's why I say you don't seem to care. Why does she care so much?
let me give you the context.
It doesn't matter to her if you are or not.
I'll give you the context of it. So I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I have eight current living people
Hmm.
that are from Montana area
Hmm.
that are my cousin matches
Okay.
at 17 to 18 centimorgans, which is the unit of measurement that they use for segments
Hmm.
that we share in common. So one segment with eight people that come from four people
Okay.
in the 1850s,
Okay.
and the four people come from Germany.
Okay.
And the surnames, and this is where she comes in. The surnames of those four people are Stein, Moore, Filson, and Schlitt or
Okay.
Schlitz. Those four people were born between 1859 and 1867.
Okay.
So I share through their descendants 17 centimorgans between them,
Hmm.
between us.
Okay.
This is a strong arrow that, well, number one, we share DNA. So one of those four leads me back to one of my direct ancestors.
Okay.
How far? So, in other words, what does that mean? That means that one of those people back there,
Hmm.
whether those people back there, we know those four are German, whether those people back there were German continuously or one of them was actually Iberian, which would side with my understanding of the world, the reality is I don't know that, but I looked at their tree and their tree goes up and it's all German. So that would imply, without me knowing,
Hmm.
I just know that the DNA is shared. That somewhere in my tree I would have one of those people branching back out there
Hmm.
with that would be my direct ancestor through one of my lines that I have not discovered yet.
Right. You have a common ancestor, but you don't know how far back that is. So
Right.
you don't know who your most recent common ancestor is.
Well, I know exactly with between them.
Yeah.
I don't know that. So she said that those names look Jewish.
Well, one does.
And well, see, but here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. Okay, one, which one? The
Stein.
Moore?
Stein.
Oh, Stein.
Mhm.
Okay.
And in German, it just simply means stone, but um, Hebrew is a Germanic language. So,
Well, Hebrew's not a Germanic language. Ashkenazi, whatever they use over there, is a Germanic language, right?
well, it's Hebrew. It is a Germanic language. The spoken language is similar.
Wait. Explain that in a different way so I understand it. You're saying that
Uh,
Hebrew is what?
a Germanic language.
Hebrew?
Germanic languages come down from Hebrew. Is what I'm getting at. I may
Okay.
have it wrong.
No, I have a different understanding. Hebrew is a Semitic language, and it has
I may have the wrong. It may not be Hebrew.
yeah. Hebrew is a Semitic language.
Hmm. Yiddish. That's what I meant. Not
Yiddish,
Hebrew.
Yiddish. Yeah,
Yiddish.
Yiddish is
I
an
apologize.
no,
I
no.
know
I got
very
confused.
little about it.
No, I got confused there. Okay, so Yiddish
Hmm.
um developed in that northwestern Central Europe, Germany, basically, in those areas,
Right
Austria, Germany.
Central and Eastern Europe. Yes.
It developed there through the population that were Ashkenazi Jews that stuck together
Hmm.
and multiplied amongst each other, and they have specific markers that point out that they're Jewish. In
Right.
other words, you can say, "Oh, look, that run of letters
Hmm.
is found all throughout that population, and that
Right.
means that they come from that." Okay, um, so some of those letters may be found in non-Jewish populations,
Right.
and what that
Absolutely. And that's why I was getting at. It's a common language core
no,
there.
no, no, the genetic letters. What I'm trying to get at is that
Hmm.
it's true that those genetic letters, like a little run, like a
Hmm.
combination on a lock, that's similar within Jews
Oh,
of,
okay. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Central Europe,
Hmm.
that run identifies them as, oh, they come from the same grouping.
Hmm.
But all their other letters are
Hmm.
found in every other group anyhow.
Yeah.
But it's that run that they're looking at and
It's
say,
that
oh,
combination. Yeah.
right. Well, but that run, here's the bit, that run that identifies them as Jews from the Central European
Hmm.
can be found in people
Yeah.
that aren't Jewish.
Right.
It would indicate that those people that aren't Jewish have Jewish ancestry at some
Hmm.
point, but they're not officially per se. Maybe there's some dude in England,
Hmm.
and all of his known
Right.
ancestry is simply like freaking English people
Hmm.
that have nothing to do with that. But there is someone in there, stuck in there somewhere, that
Hmm.
would open up that path.
Right.
But is so here's my question: is that English guy Jewish? I don't know. He has some Jewish ancestry in
Yeah.
there, but does
Yeah.
that make him Jewish?
Well, I mean, you'd have to talk to them. Are they
Well, no,
practicing? Are they not? I mean,
no,
you
but this
know,
this is what I'm saying, that
well,
the
that's what I'm getting at. Those markers are there in people, even though they don't, even though they're not considered Jewish,
yeah,
and
practicing
have
Jews,
absolutely no idea of their possible Jewish ancestry. So,
right? So I
but the broader point being is just because your name is Stein doesn't mean you're Jewish. Just because your name
right.
is Moore doesn't mean you're Jewish.
That's the other side of that.
That's the assumption part, and that's what was getting at earlier, and
Yeah,
that's what I was talking about. You have to take into consideration language, and it was Yiddish, not Hebrew.
yeah,
Yiddish is a Germanic language, but is written usually, not always, but usually in Hebrew characters. That's where the confusion comes for me. I get the two twisted all the time.
yeah.
um, but the Yiddish word Stein and the German word Stein both mean stone. So just because somebody's name is Stein doesn't mean they're Jewish. Just means that their name is Germanic. That's all it means.
Yeah. I mean, so the the name can be found separate from a Jewish past,
Yeah, absolutely.
and,
That was my point.
and so with that in consideration, how can I, like going back to the salmon
Hmm.
thing, make a determination when I consider all the points. One, I can find records going back into the 1600s,
Hmm.
which granted the 1600s was preceded by the 1500s. So maybe in the 1500s the name attached to some Jewish guy. But I don't know that. Maybe it was in the 1400s, maybe it was 1300s, maybe it was
Well,
I all I can see is a succession of Christian baptisms, marriages, and deaths. And
and
so the assumption or leap, just because the name, because you can think of Solomon and Salmon, which is some of the suggestions,
yeah,
but
but
maybe
you also had an Inquisition sometime back there too. So 1400s, let's not forget about. So um, I'm sure there were some Jewish converts that still had Jewish ancestry but became Christian.
they were given Christian names.
Right. But being out in the mountains and this, that, and the other, did they get everybody? Maybe, maybe not. And who's to say somebody didn't come after that whole thing was done and over with? I mean, people move around, names move with them, words move with them.
Hmm.
If you'd have come here 60 years ago, you'd have never heard the word taco. You'd have never heard the word burrito. Words travel. So names travel as well.
Yeah, we just can't put our finger on. So okay, look, here's the thing. It's like saying, I'm gonna make an exaggerated example. It's like saying, "Hey, there's life on Mars or outer space," and then me returning, or and someone returning and saying, "Okay, you say that. What's your evidence?" You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You can't make a statement of fact unless you can back it up. And speculation is not a proper backup. I'm sorry.
Well, um, there's a few comments here, but let me start backwards forward. If the mother was Jewish, the children were considered Jewish. Okay, so um,
Yeah,
the way
because
we
that's because well, the one before Judaism is a matrilineal line. Jews trace their ancestry back from the mother's side, not the father's. Right. But I was answering that. I was typing as you were talking. That's true. But the Y DNA that they're examining to trace this is passed from father to father, father to son.
no, well,
It's all through the father's line.
let me give some clarity because there's a few things here.
Hmm.
Let me just go here. Oh, that was Jim's proceeding. Okay, so as we understand it today, the mother passes on the Jewishness. So the father could be, in theory, from another grouping, as long as the mother is Jewish. Usually, usually in theory, it would be that they're both Jewish, but it's passed on through the mother. So yes, um, so there are. Let me turn that off. So there are the Mark example where they go through the Y to see if there's Jewishness through the Y. That's true,
Hmm.
but there's also the MT maternal DNA.
Right.
So the maternal DNA can also establish Jewishness.
Right.
However, they don't use the Y or this or that. They
Hmm.
use pedigrees and
Right.
paperwork to demonstrate Jewishness because the problem has arisen, which I'll explain right now.
Okay. But just to clarify my point before you do, what the tracing you have been doing has been largely through the Y-DNA, correct?
Uh, I have both.
Okay.
I have the paternal, and my aunt did the maternal. I haven't done
Okay.
the, but my aunt would be like me in that respect because my mom.
Okay. I didn't know because I didn't think you had done the maternal. That's why I.
But I've done both. So,
Okay.
and in fact, I'm going to speak to it. So here's
Okay.
here's the thing about with Linda's thing. So they do not use DNA to establish Jewishness. Um, they use the pathway of the paperwork
Hmm. Hmm.
because a problem has arisen, and the problem is the following, which is freaking the thing. My maternal line through my mother, my aunt took the test. It would be the same as hers and her mother's and her mother's mothers and mother's mothers. Is an H, which is common in Europe and it's rare. And on the list, I mean, when I look, it's rare depending on how many people have tested that will show the same thing. So let's be clear. Not enough people with that actual marker has popped up. There has been a lot, but compared to other groups, there's more. So when I say rare, I mean that there's a selection of people not as big as
Hmm.
what's been tested out there. It just so happens that on that line,
Hmm.
I can honestly sit here and say and show you. I can open up the thing and show you that other people that have that marker that my
Hmm.
mom has are Ashkenazi Jews.
Okay.
Like Ashkenazi Jews. But here's the thing, the reverse is true.
Hmm.
There's people that are absolutely not Ashkenazi Jew that have that marker. And the
Hmm.
reason that that's true, and by the way, that's the reason why they don't use, or that's one of the potential reasons they don't use it, because anybody can have those markers,
Hmm.
regardless of location, because the human race funnels into one where markers are all screwed in, mixed in with each other.
Right.
So, but here's the thing, and that's actually a literal situation for the concepts that occur in our common understanding that's not applicable genetically. Um, so because that's the case, they go for the paperwork. Um, I cannot, unless I have paperwork, say, you know what, maternally, I am the direct descendant of people from the Middle East, from the Levant area. I can't say that because I don't have that documentation. All I can say is that I have people in the Canary Islands going back to X amount on my direct maternal line, up to the point that I can reach, that they were born in the Canary Islands. I can't go further than that.
Hmm.
And to finalize the thing, what they found with the female genetics, of the MT DNA,
Hmm.
is that they, during the prehistory time, women were moved around,
Hmm.
and different tribal groupings
Hmm.
were that genetic was introduced. And the same with the Y, but in a different way. But for the women, you have this scattering of, so we are the children of these people. You could say a Russian or a German or Italian. Makes no freaking difference. It makes a difference at the level that one looks at, but in the great scheme of things, everybody's has all these mixes going on. So how could I determine, like this lady is trying to suggest to me, the lady in the group, unless I have documentation? I'm
Yeah.
not,
Yeah. You really can't. You can't make a claim, and you can't make a claim for somebody else unless you can back it up. And I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point with her, but she doesn't seem to be having it because she really likes the Jewish angle, and I understand that. So I'm not really even, it doesn't bother me, but it's just the only part that kind of bothers me is like, why can't you understand that? Look, missing information, I can't affirm that indeed
Hmm.
this is the case. And by the way, you're talking about a community of people that literally, some of the oldest churches in Europe.
Hmm. Yeah.
It just, yes, there's there has to be other groupings coming in because people met, but you can't. So, anyways, whatever. It is com- um, frustrating slightly in that aspect, but as far as she enjoys it, why
Look,
not enjoy it?
you're a golden retriever. You're just in denial. Okay. That's all
Yeah,
there is to it. You're just in denial. You're a golden retriever. Go get a bowl, sit down there next to Vigo, and eat your kibbles and bits. All
yeah.
right.
We can't nail it down like that. That's the problem. And so Jim said something else. Let me see. Wait, he said, "You're better at this than I am, but I'm trying to find surnames."
The 21st century is quarter over. Is that the one you were looking for?
No, I found it here. Let me
Oh,
get.
okay. Sorry.
He said, when Spain was part of the Caliphate, they were tolerant of other religions. It was the global center of education at the time, and today's universities are still based on the same model. So, in the
Mm,
in the oh no, that's absolutely true. So the people that came into Spain, I mean, there's plenty of documentation there
yeah.
of the time, so it's not even a mystery. They were the forefront of that, and I just got done reading a paper of an actual family that was the last bastion of. They held out in Granada
Hmm.
when the Catholic world was moving down south and conquering the lands back
Hmm.
again, the Reconquista. And this caliphate people, or these last rulers, they were holding out. It was the Kingdom of Granada.
Hmm.
Their buildings, the the water systems that they used, all of it, um, and the books that they kept. It just, there's levels to it. The science, the
Hmm.
poetry, they held the books that were
Yeah.
lost originally from Europe itself.
Hmm.
The Greek literature, the Roman literature. So all this information was stored in Andalusia. That's absolutely true. The rest of Europe may have had a book or two or three or a handful, but they would come and they would draw from it. It wasn't. it wasn't do or die in terms of like information was shared. It was a hub. People would come in and out. It depended on the battle going on.
Right.
You could have a battle one. It's kind of like today. You could be in Lebanon next year when the fighting's over. Let's say you
Hmm.
could be an American and you can visit another part of Russia.
Hmm.
Yes, you were at some sort of war at one point, but now you're okay. It was the same thing, but with their means back then.
Hmm.
Um, so it was so they were so influential, at least in Spain. I don't know about, but the Christians would dress with the fabrics that were fashionable in the Islamic Granada
Hmm.
sense, and the Granada people would copy the Christians just like we exchange ideas today. So they would see the fashion styles of the
Hmm.
Christians and they would say, "Oh, that would look like women." You know how that is,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they would adapt. So what you had is this. So when the Catholic kings came in to take over Granada, they were dressed in the silks that were fashionable in the Arab world, but yet they were Christian.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of exchanging of stuff like ideas and this, and that. But
Yeah.
so just based on that, you can't make a judgment call on it unless you can trace the thing, or the DNA is so resounding that you know
Yeah.
so you can't really and she has Jewish results in her thing,
Hmm.
and I do too. Depending on the test, I show Jewish. Yes, I
Yeah.
do, and I could trace some lines back to Judaism converts,
Hmm.
but you're going back and you're surrounded by Christians. So it's like what I've said before. Does that? Yeah, I can actually make the trail up to Jewish ancestors, but you're talking about hundreds of lines of people at that same time
Hmm.
that weren't Jewish,
Yeah.
and they funnel down to me.
Hmm.
So are you Jewish? Are you this or no? You're not. You're all of that, but you're none of that. You're basically it's so her idea of the Jewish thing. I don't know. It's like if she likes it, she likes it. But um, I don't know anything other than Christianity. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. It doesn't matter to me one way or another, you know. But
Yeah,
I think Linda's onto something here. You know, her mind is made up. Don't confuse her with the fact.
yeah, and I'm okay. Look, it's not like outrageous in a other than it's not right. But if she's happy with that stuff and she enjoys it and she gets a kick, it's kind of like why not enjoy yourself? But I'm not gonna accept saying that it's like factual. It could be factual. She could be right. Just provide some sort of direction so I can say, okay, fine. No, there's none, you know?
Yeah.
And plus, remember, they did expel Jews like crazy.
Hmm.
And if they didn't expel them, something else. And
Hmm.
so they did a cleansing. They did a cleansing, dude.
Ethnic cleansing, exactly.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
I mean, so majority
And they
were
weren't the only ones, believe me,
no,
because that also went on for millennia.
no, yeah. And by the way, I'm gonna let my dog. But by the way, Mark,
Hmm.
I the majority of the people in my past, as far as I can trace, were the people that remained after the cleansing.
Yeah.
you know, so
History is written by the victors, especially back then. So let's see. Al, how you doing, Al? Good evening. Hello, Christians and non-Christians. Um, that's where the word algebra comes from, and algorithm, and all those other math al names.
yeah,
Yeah, but we also took a lot from ancient Greek, and we took a lot from Latin. I mean, gymnasium, that's Greek right there. Um, so we took a lot of
sugar,
things.
sugar comes from the Arabs.
Al says, I love heathenism. I prefer frisbeology. We believe as frisbeologists that when you die, your soul gets stuck on the roof.
Um, we are a borrowing world.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, I mean, we really are a borrowing world, um, and so many levels. And if you think of the United States, we've made the case here, you and I.
Hmm.
We're really always adapting new stuff
Hmm.
in different
Yeah.
ways. We're always rearranging something to create something, um, from the ashes of what was before, or something
Hmm.
adapted mixed in there. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, just music and art and movies and
Common
food.
language, everything, food. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So I mean,
And that's what I meant when I say people, languages, words, and names travel. And you can, there is actually a study of it. It's called either cultural geography or human geography. And simply put, that basically tracks the movement of people and cultures and languages, etc. And you can basically break that down like this. You can look at a map of Europe and you can say, this is Spain. These are its borders. This is the common language. This is France. These are its borders. They have a common language. This is Germany. These are its borders. They have a common language. But you can't look at a map and say, this is Catholic. You can't look at a map and say, this is majority population over the age of 70. Now, you can look at regions. There aren't, what I'm getting at is there are no borders for those. There are no direct places where you can look at and say, that's where this is. Because there are regions where, like Central and South America, where you're going to have a large percentage of Catholic, but you're also going to have that over in Europe.
no,
You're
they're
going to,
intermixed within.
so, Iceland is, there are more people over the age of 70 in Iceland than anywhere else in the world because a lot of their younger people are just, they're emigrating, they're leaving.
Yeah.
So people move and it's just kind of keeping track of where those people are going to. There are certain traits that humans have that can't be defined by borders is what I'm getting at. You can't put a border around blonde hair any more than you can around brown eyes.
Yeah, but you can, and they do, and there's maps out there that. But okay, two things. That's a good point. If you 2 points. One, if you try to make a map that includes, like, imagine the map of Europe to include all the variables that you mentioned, it would look like a spotty mess with
Right.
different colors within each region because there's overlap of the different varieties that you explained.
Hmm.
But if you were to look at a map and just use one category, um, let's say blonde hair,
Hmm.
then you could make a map with percentages that
Sure.
graduate in more frequency going north. You could
Right.
do that, and then, but that's only one category. If you go ahead.
But what I'm getting at is that knows no political or cultural boundary,
No, no, it doesn't.
whereas physical geography does. There's a
Mhm.
political or physical
Yeah,
boundary
yeah,
that defines where that is.
right. And we do associate, for obvious reasons,
Mhm.
with those geographic boundaries because we, in a sense, like for instance, already I can tell you, like if I had to, like I don't even need to be pushed, but like if we're talking here,
Mhm.
this is obvious for both of us and all of us.
Sure.
I'll say to you, hey Mark, but I'm a Floridian dude,
Hmm.
and I'm 100% right. But then you could come around and say, well, yeah, well, I'm from Oregon, but Eloy, remember, we're all part of this geographic region called the United States.
Yeah.
And then I could come back to you and say, okay, fine, Mark, but remember, I'm from the southeast of the United States, or
Hmm.
East Coast. You're from the
Right.
West Coast, so we could divide it into those two halves as well.
We certainly could, and that's more of that. That is not physical geography. Well, it is in some respects, but it isn't in other respects because Oregon does have a physical border. There's a physical political border around Oregon, and the same for Florida.
Yeah.
East Coast, West Coast, yeah, you're bound physically to those two extremes. And North and South, yeah, you're physically bound by those extremes. So, or by those regions. So, yeah, but you're getting into, again, you're getting into physical geography, not
The
geometry.
the
You
reason
might be
I'm
getting into physical geometry. It depends on how you want to shape things.
the reason that I'm mentioning that back and forth that I created on my own between you and me about east,
Hmm.
west, this, that, and the other, is that the same territory
Hmm.
or chunk of land,
Hmm.
geographic area,
Sure.
can be subdivided
Yes, it can.
according to the definitions we want to create in order to
Hmm.
like, I don't know, you know what, Mark, for us here on the East Coast, we usually use the word, I know that this is not true because you use the same word,
Hmm.
but I'm just using the example for the hell of it. It's the best one I can come up with. We use the word soda, not pop.
Hmm.
I know you use soda too. um, and you would say, well, you know what, Eloy? Well, heck, we use the word soda as well. It's not us;
Hmm.
it's the people in these areas and this, and so we can use it as a stepping stone for whatever we're trying to encapsulate.
Sure.
Um, but at the end of the day, there is this broader. It's just a chunk of area.
And it also depends on what you're trying to define. When I was in cartography, for working with, yes, you can see several of them. You can see several borders from space. Um, when I was in cartography, working towards a degree in GIS, one of the required books that we had and we read a lot of was, the simple title was How to Lie with Maps. It is used as a tool.
Mhm.
It's very easy to lie with maps. It just depends on what you want to report. Now there's some cherry picking involved in this, that, and the other, and a lot of human geography gets mixed up with a lot of physical geography. But you can split up and you can subdivide anything.
Right.
Anything depends on what conclusion you're trying to draw from that map. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, like Miami.
mhm,
Um, you've clarified this when I'm talking. It's interesting, and I checked it as a note because it is an interesting thing for one to even turn and think about, because you usually don't think about it unless somebody brings it up.
mhm,
There's a lot of things like that. What you said, like I've been telling a story or another, and I'll say, yeah, because here in Miami, this that, and you're like, well, wait a second, Eloy, but you live in Sweetwater, which is the outskirts, so you're not necessarily in Miami, and then I have to clarify and say, well, no, yeah, you're right, um, because you're right, I'm not in Miami, I'm in actually literally Sweetwater, which
mhm,
is on the outskirts. Now, but here's the details within that. On a localized area, what people usually do to kick the football around, although it's not accurate,
mhm.
what's accurate is what you're saying. I should say no, because over in Sweetwater. But here's the thing:
but but that
people. No, no,
doesn't.
wait. I gotta tell you this. I gotta tell you this because
Okay.
this is the foot stomper. You recognize it. It's true, but locally, a lot of people, even if they live next door to Sweetwater, don't know where the hell Sweetwater is because it's all a
Yeah.
continuous. It's all a continuous. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's a blurred.
Dude, you want to see that in action on a writ large, on a grand scale?
Yeah,
Go to Los Angeles and find Los Angeles.
that's exactly it.
You really have to look for that sign unless you're from there,
Yeah,
unless you know where you are and you know your way around. You wouldn't know if you were in Pasadena, Los Angeles, or Ontario, or pick a city. Pick a city down there.
it's the same thing, and that's a perfect example, Mark. And I
Mhm.
live there, and I can tell you that that's true. I had
Yeah,
no freaking idea
because
what
it's nothing but wall to wall. That's all there is to it.
okay, so yeah, so here's the thing with that, that
Hmm.
from your perspective you can delineate because you know that there's certain key things, and I can too because I live here.
Hmm.
If I were to get in my car,
Hmm.
yeah, well, wait a second, because I live here, but the guy living next door to me in Westchester might not recognize this area as Sweetwater. You know what they might think of? Oh, that's just heading towards Doral, or that's just heading towards this place. They don't necessarily
Hmm.
connect that this is an
Yeah.
actual, because in their mind it's all city.
Yeah.
But when I go to Westchester,
Hmm.
just next door,
Yeah.
I know I'm in Westchester.
Hmm.
However, don't ask me to qualify where that
Where that
similar
line is.
thing,
Yeah.
because I may say, "Oh, I'm still in Westchester," unless I'm in the heart of Westchester. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'll be doubtful of where the heck
Yeah.
I am.
Well, we got a similar thing here. I tell people, yeah, I'm in Medford, Oregon, which is small enough as it is, but that's the biggest city in Southern Oregon. It's kind of like being valedictorian of summer school because, there's 80,000 people in the city. It's
Yeah,
not that big of a deal. There's only 200,000 people in the whole county. All right.
yeah,
I don't live in Medford. I'm about 7, 8 miles away from Medford. But if I say Eagle Point or White City or Jacksonville, nobody knows where the hell those places are. So, you say, yeah, I'm from Medford. Whereas you say, yeah, I'm from Miami. It gets
yeah.
them
Get it
close
over.
enough.
Yeah, get it over with because they're not gonna follow you.
It's close enough. So, yeah, I get that. I mean, I go up in a little town. Well, at that time, it was a little town called Fremont, California. I say the San Francisco Bay Area because nobody's ever heard of Fremont. They don't know what a Fremont is,
Yeah,
but they've heard of San Francisco. Never mind the fact that it was across the bay from us and up north, 20 something miles.
I've
So,
seen videos because I'm into the subject. I've seen videos where people in Spain,
mhm,
actual Spaniards
mhm,
living there, are asked about Cantabria,
uh-huh.
and they don't know where the hell it is.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
reporter guy has to say next to the Basque Country.
mhm.
Oh, over there, yeah, over there.
we
Because
get this.
people,
We get
they're
the same here. I mean, ask 50 people to point to Idaho on the map. I bet you a certain percentage will point to Ohio.
I could point to Idaho because of the brand, the brown tins in the stores and boxes. That's one of the first states I just
You
because of
want
the shit.
potatoes. You know the potatoes, right?
But that's exactly how I learned it.
Okay. All right. Colorado. Which one's
Yeah, it's just a
Colorado?
big,
Which one's
just
Wyoming?
it's just a big square. I can
Yeah, ain't
figure
it
it out.
funny how it all of a sudden got square out here and rectangular? Look at all the straight lines.
Yeah,
Weird how that worked. Anyway.
yeah, but things like that, Mark. We don't necessarily we can approximate and
Mhm,
figure it out because that nuance,
mhm.
um, it's only on a need to know basis, and you
Yeah,
need to get the conversation flowing. So you just basically round to the
right.
biggest, whatnot. But
Exactly. And it, usually that breaks down when somebody else says, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm from there too. Where did you live?" "Oh, well, okay, actually, I'm out in Eagle Point." "Oh, okay, where out?" "Oh, well, where Shasta Avenue is." "Yeah." "Oh, okay. Well, I'm over by there." "Oh, all right. Well, I have a cousin who works up at the National Cemetery." "Oh, really?" "Oh, okay. Yeah."
let me throw in a curveball that's
Mm,
slightly departing the conversation, but not really. Kind of in the, as opposed to saying the borders we're talking about and we approximate it. I want just to throw it out there to see what you think. We probably talked about it. Um, how about across time with geographic landscape, um, landmarks changing?
mhm.
As in, have you seen those photos on on Facebook where it says the before and after of like LA or Hollywood movies?
Oh, yeah.
How cool is that? Where you have a picture of, like, let's say Back to the Future, where Marty was
Mhm.
on the back of the pickup on a skateboard.
Yeah.
It's the same location that's being shot, like past 30 some odd years, but
Mhm.
you can tell that certain landmarks in the background have absolutely gone away.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and the second part, before I see what you say, the second part, this is just a side note of it.
Okay.
How about that each camera that we're looking at or image has a different, I guess, what do you call it, focal thing or
Focal
um,
length, yeah.
focal length, and it changes the shape of the mountains in the background so that it looks almost like it's slightly not even the same. Have you noticed that?
Yes. And that is one of the problems with trying to go back and find some of these landmarks. Some of them are very easy. Others are not so easy. You can go back and you can find certain things, but if it was shot with a certain focal length, it may be a little bit more difficult to find. You know,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a specific video that I watched the other day on this subject, and I will link it over on. I watched it yesterday. I'll link it over on Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page because it's kind of cool, especially if you've seen any of these movies. There's a YouTube channel called Ghost Town Living, where it's a gentleman who, with a couple of partners, bought an old ghost town in Southern California called Cerro Gordo. And it's out in the Owens Valley. It's up in the mountains right off of Owens Lake. You go the other side, down the road, the other side, you're into Death Valley. And he put out a video called Hollywood in My Backyard, 9 famous movie locations around Cerro Gordo. And yes, Jim, the silver mine guy, him. He put out a video. When did he put it out? He put it out, that doesn't say. But I watched it yesterday, and he goes on just a little trip. The closest to where he lives movie shot was a Western location. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was shot on the front porch of the house he lives in. And he pans the camera, and he's got a split screen going where you've got the movie playing as this horse and wagon comes up the road, and he's panning with it. And on this side of the screen, it's showing his view. And he says, now, if you look right here, you can see a little rod and a little bit of a net from a snowshoe. And he hops off his front porch and he picks it up and it says, here is that shoe. So I could hang it up and I could get the camera view of what this opening scene in this movie is.
Can you link it to me?
I will link it to you, and I will also link it on a Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
It's about a 30-minute video. It's 33 minutes, 30 seconds. He does a couple of really cool shots. Iron Man, part of Iron Man 1 was shot there, where Tony Stark is out there. I got his arms out. I present to you Jericho. And he's standing in that spot with those mountains right behind him. It's the Sierra Nevada range right behind him. And on one side of the screen, it's Robert Downey Jr. And on the other side of the screen, it's him. And all these bombs start going off and everything else in the background, all CGI stuff. The cave, he shows the corner. It's on his road, the road up into his town. The cave Tony Stark comes out of in the first Iron Man suit is a corner of basically his driveway. They built the cave. There's no cave there. And they put camouflage netting all around it and everything else. And he shows off, okay, this is the angle right here. And he split screens it and everything else. Did you ever see the movie Tremors?
Yeah,
About the giant earth?
I
All of
love
it
it.
shot right around his town. All of it. And he goes
I
and
watched it
visits.
live.
He goes and visits all these locations where it was filmed
I didn't mean to say I watched it live. I watched it back when it came out.
when it came
Live.
out.
I watched it live.
They estimate there were between 400 and 500 Western movies and TV shows that were shot in and around that town, dating way, way, way back.
I thought it was such a great movie, Tremors. I loved it.
Yeah, well,
was so.
he said it was he said this was a movie masterpiece and one of the greatest movies ever made. And they visit the Inyo County Film Museum where they've got a few props from the movie and all this other good stuff. But he went to 9 different direct locations from various movies, and he talked a little bit about TV, but not much. But he said there's been a ton of movies shot in that town and around it, and he goes and visit those old locations.
I've been on TV. Did you know that? Or not me, my car.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, yeah, my car was on TV when I lived in LA.
Mm-hmm.
They did some crappy movie, TV show. I forget what it was, but I saw it on TV. The camera driving by caught
Mm-hmm.
my car sitting in a parking space
Mm-hmm.
in front of the apartment that I was living at,
Mm-hmm.
and there it was, and I was like, "Oh look, 15 minutes for my car," and it was great just to watch. It's just one of those things that
Yeah,
it's a prop. It's a prop in a TV show. Um,
yeah. There's that kind of thing is fun to me. And I mean, there's a bunch of different ones. Nevada Smith was one of the movies that was shot there. Steve McQueen movie. And there's just a whole bunch of things. I will put a link to that video over on the Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page as soon as we're done here. And yes, Jim, Heavy D Sparks helped him out with his road and with the foundation to the hotel. And he talks about that road. That road washes out every year. And that's right on that corner where Tony Stark comes out of the cave within the first Iron Man suit.
that first movie was
That
well done.
that corner there, that's the road that washes out every year.
That movie in itself was well done.
Hmm. It was. It was.
I guess I'll say
Linda's
one. What
Linda's getting into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
is she?
Yes, she is. They have a few of them on pay-per-view. She's not able to go in chronological or release order because they're on demand, not pay-per-view. They're on demand for free. So she's catching it here and there, and so far enjoying it.
I
So,
liked Ant Man, and I think it was called Ant Man. Like, if I had to pick of what I remember, I'm not a big. I like the comic books, but man, it's too much explosions for me. But if I had to pick one, a few that were entertaining was the original X Men. A couple of the X Men ones were okay, original back then. The Logan one, original one from a few years ago,
mhm.
which was Wolverine.
Yeah.
Definitely this one you're talking about, Iron
Mhm.
Man 1.
Iron Man 1, yeah.
And not much. Oh, the WandaVision
Mhm.
series was really fun. But this Avengers stuff, there's too much going on, dude.
Well, she saw Captain America Civil War,
That one was good. I saw that one.
and Thor Ragnarok,
I
and
like that one too. I like the story ones are fun.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's the one that was I thought was fun.
Yeah, she's was watching that one today. And there's another one, I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, but some
But
of the overtly more explosions back to back constantly.
mhm,
I don't know why, but it kind of like no, I don't. But those that the Wanda one and the Ant
mhm.
Man one, those I like those. There's enough balance that for
Well,
my taste, you know.
I kind of blame myself for this simply because she likes Chris Pratt. So she watched Guardians of the Galaxy, which she likes. She liked that movie a lot. Then Guardians of the Galaxy 2 came out. And so she saw that and she liked it a lot too. Well, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is out. And I have warned her, look, it is not going to make sense if you don't watch the Avengers series. It's not going to make sense because a lot of things happen in that Avengers series with the Guardians of the Galaxy. So when you go to Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you're going to be like, huh?
Yeah,
So don't see it yet. They're not separate franchises, they are intermixed and interchanged. Don't see it yet. So,
yeah. This all started really. back in, well, actually back when Marvel started, but in the 80s transitioning into the 90s, um, a lot of the artists that were doing the comic books
Hmm.
um, were really doing different things that had been done before as far as drawing,
Hmm.
and they all decided to group up, leave Marvel, and create um, their own comic book thing,
Hmm.
and that became one of the pivotal moments where it screwed up the market, let's say, and we were always expecting or hoping that in some future time movies like these would appear.
Hmm.
But now that, for some reason, back then it would have been mind blowing for me, but now it's like, okay, okay, fine.
Yeah. 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 Um, Jim is asking, is was he the guy on Parks and Recreation? Yes, Chris Pratt was in Parks and Recreation. Yeah.
Um, I just want to drop this one aside since we're in this sort of
Yeah.
Hollywood ish
We'll get
thing. Just one final bit here.
okay.
There's a channel like a few others that do where they go around the world, film different locations, and we get to, see it from the screen from here. And they visit weird. Well, this guy visited China.
Hmm.
It's not the first time it's happened, but they visited China, and China has built in the interior somewhere.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this in the past, but this is a recent video. They've built recreations of places like Paris
Hmm.
and so on and so forth, and people can purchase and live in a Paris environment.
Hmm.
But you're Chinese and
Hmm.
you commute to work and then you go back home and you're in this world that's in between mountains or
Yeah.
forests,
With Eiffel Tower and the whole thing.
like the whole thing, a recreation of the thing. Well, this video was a focus on the Montana styled themed city.
Oh wow.
And Mark, it was mind blowing. First of all, him and his guide travel. He's from Arizona and she's from China. The guy, or no, he's from Arizona and she's American too, from Texas. But she's been living in China for who knows how long, and she can speak the language, whatever.
Hmm.
They go to the town, and dude, it's empty. It's almost like a ghost town, but everything is
Hmm.
pristinely Montana.
Hmm.
And then little by little, people do start. You can tell that there are people living there, but it's
Hmm.
quite, it's eerie in a way, they say. And then they visit a guy's house, and you see these locals, Chinese people, and they're all done up with American, whatnot, coolness and this and that, record collections, and you're like, what the heck? It's so surreal.
Well,
You're tripping half.
I hate to say it, but have you ever been to Montana? It's kind of like what Montana is. I mean, you know, it's big. They call it big sky country for a reason. I mean, people are spread out.
Yeah.
Miami has 2 million people. Montana has like 1.6 million, something like that. So it's about half the population. Let me look at it real quick here. Montana population. Um, 1.1 million in the state, in the whole state.
Yeah.
And so seeing nobody is the norm because they're so spread out. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
But
more cattle than people in Montana, you
I
know.
get it. But in the context of the video and them, remember they're in China,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so wherever they were before, it has a population, and so now they enter this place. It's like they're transported without leaving the country of China
Hmm.
into America in this surreal thing. But they're walking these streets and they're empty. They don't know what to expect. So it's in
Well,
the context of the thing, um, and they do come across people,
hmm.
and they eat there. They have honest to goodness steak and this and that,
Hmm.
but there's slight variations that are enough to tip you off.
Yeah.
And so it's a surreal experience, but it's American enough, by overwhelming leaps and bounds in terms of the structure and this and that,
Yeah.
and that it's just a trippy thing.
Well,
I mean, whatever. It's just a
there
trippy.
have been a couple of videos, and we talked about this before because I discovered that, hey, man, they're building Paris over there. They built a Las Vegas over there, all this stuff. And I thought it was weird. The thing that they missed, because a lot of these places, they're starting to tear them down now because nobody wants to live there because they forgot one thing. It takes more than architecture to draw somebody to a city. You have to have some sort of industry there. People got to work.
Hmm.
And you can't just rely on the local restaurants and stores.
Yeah,
You know, you've got to have a reason to be there. And without some sort of industry or agriculture or something like that, there's no attraction for these people.
yeah,
So I could see the Montana thing going over pretty well because I would assume they're raising cattle out there and stuff like that. That would be a good place to do that. Montana, Wyoming, the whole thing, because there's a lot of cattle ranches out there.
yeah. The temperature is the only thing that I. Oh, and they were in the blistering heat. They were saying, "Man, it's freaking blistering hot here." It's like,
Yeah, that ain't Montana. There are some places in Montana that regularly are some of the coldest places in the continental U.S.
it was just a surreal thing, and
Yeah.
you could imagine. You, I don't know if you've ever been to Epcot
No, I've
Center.
never been to Epcot. I've never been that far south in Florida. Furthest south
So
I've ever been in Florida was Jacksonville.
okay,
Well,
so
no, I got to take that back. Um, um, Panama City.
okay, well, I mean,
It's still up north from you, but
yeah, it's way up north. That's the northern reaches of reality for me.
mhm,
But Epcot has a similar smaller scale vibe where you're visiting each little
mhm,
town around the world, and all of a sudden, hey, now we're in China, or hey, now we're in Denmark, and it really is fun at a
mhm,
small scale, but it
yeah,
breaks the every time you walk a block or two, it
mhm,
breaks the illusion.
mhm,
But you don't care because you're enjoying it.
yeah,
But imagine a place that you're surrounded between in a forest, and it looks just like it's almost like the Prisoner movie series from England.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just fair warning, whether you go to Montana or Wyoming, and I know Greg Snow Crusher said talking about heading to Montana, going to raise a crop of dental floss. Yeah, just know that if you're in Montana or Wyoming, the state police will pull you over just because they're lonely. All right, so be prepared for that. Where are you going? What are you doing? Take me with you. Yeah.
Well,
We ought to go ahead and land the plane on that note. What the hell?
okay. Well, so nothing that this was fun. It was a few different little topics here and there. Um, I was swatting away an ant on my table without killing it by by just using the fan method.
Now be careful. Could be Scott,
Who's Scott?
the Ant Man.
Oh, okay. Wow. First name basis. We go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on the Trampled Underfoot podcast channel on YouTube. And we also have a Facebook page, which is Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. And you can go check that out. Mark's going to leave a link. We usually do leave links with some of the cool things that we talk about. And we also have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You can go over there and catch our past episodes. And we're also sponsored by.
Harneil Media, who is slow on the draw this evening. I think we put him to sleep. We lulled him to sleep with our dulcet tones as I leaned forward into the microphone and put on my Barry White voice. Harneil Media, your web solution. Now, if you're even thinking about a website, there's no place I will refer you to other than Harneil Media. Do yourself a favor, just go check it out. Go over to harneilmedia.com, click on that contact us button, and reach out to Steve. He'll take care of you. 100% personalized service, very competitively priced. He's good at what he does.
Special code cough drop. Just kidding.
Yeah, that'll just use the word cough drop so he knows where you came from. That's Harneal Media, HARNEAL media.com. Sponsor, trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
All right, guys. Well, we, well, first off, actually, we hope for a speedy, quick recovery for both Kim Jim ill and Harneal ill.
Mhm.
Recover, feel better, and everyone enjoy the rest of your week. Do the things that you like. Be safe at it, and we'll catch you here next time. So, see ya.
Do like you feel. Keep both feet on the wheel. Don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Have a good night.